This is the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast with your host, Vicki Davis.
Today's podcast is being sponsored by MadLearn, my favorite tool for app building and the one I'm using this year with my 9th grade students. Stay tuned at the end of the show to learn how you can get a hands-on free trial. So today I'm so excited. We're talking with Felinne Hermans. She has a PhD in software engineering, but we're really talking about this amazing open source free tool that she has created and hundreds of educators and programmers maintain around the world. It's in 50 languages to teach kids 10 and up text-based programming. It's called Hedy, HEDY.org. Thanks for coming on the show today, Felinne.
Happy to be here.
So first of all, I'm going to ask the question everybody's going to ask. Why do you call it Hedy?
So it's actually named after Hedy Lamar. She was a famous movie actress. Most people know that. But she was actually also an electrical engineer. And she invented an algorithm called frequency hopping, which is also in your Wi-Fi router. That if a certain frequency gets full, then the network actually hops to a different network. And then if you look at pictures of her, if kids ask me, why is it named Hedy? I show them a picture and then they're like, oh, she doesn't look like an engineer. She doesn't look like an inventor.
Oh.
And it's so long ago, and still we're battling those stereotypes. I personally also get this question like, oh, you don't look like a computer science professor. Oh, did you make a programming language? And it's just because my gender. So we just need to keep breaking these stereotypes. And therefore, I thought she was just an excellent role model.
Talk about why are you passionate about teaching young children programming?
Like software is everywhere, right? Apps on your phone. Kids are in the digital world all the time. GPT is everywhere in schools. But what I see is that kids are only consumers in the digital world. They look at videos, they look at TikTok, they look at Instagram, but they're never creators. So they don't feel, oh, in this digital world, I can also make something. Whereas we do want kids to be creators. We want them to write stories and to draw drawings and to make songs. So why does this digital world that is so big and perpetuous everywhere for kids, why don't we allow them to create there? So that's what I really think is important. And these things also from the real world in the digital world are possible to create in Hedy. So you can use Hedy to create songs and drawings and interactive fiction. All these things we want kids to do, but then digitally.
This is exciting because computational thinking is so important because basically just like we can explain art or we can explain what we would like written and AI can help us, we're reaching the point of citizen programming where we can describe a program we want. I mean, I'll tell you, I found this fantastic Airtable GPT. I use Airtable to run this podcast and it helped me write all these scripts that when this show goes live, I will change this to complete and it's automatically going to send you an email. Like that's really cool programming. And I know enough about programming to look at that script and know what it means. So we have to supervise AI. It's not enough to just tell AI, we want this. We have to be able to supervise it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you also had a very key point there saying, I know a little bit about programming. As soon as you know a little bit, you can also know what to ask the computer. But if you have no idea, like sometimes I let my students also interact with AI and they really say like, make me an app for this. Right? But that's not detailed enough. You have to know what are the ingredients. I need a database, I need a button. And if you have this little bit of knowledge, then AI can make you more powerful. But if you don't know anything, it also cannot really. Yes.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the response you're seeing. Like you have a bunch of people working for free, translating.
Yeah, this has been such a surprise for me. So I created Hedy for my own 7th graders to use. As this project, I thought, oh, it would be fun if they had their own programming language. Why not? And then one of the core parts of the success of Hedy was this localization that we talked about. I built it in English and Dutch, which is my native language initially. And then once we had Dutch, people started to add French and Spanish and German. Just random people on the internet said, oh, but I also want to have a programming language in my own natural language. because it's easier for kids to learn. It feels more like their language is also part of the digital world. And then just slowly it started growing and we got more and more languages and we got teachers excited as well. So a lot of our project is not just about empowering students to learn programming, but also empowering teachers. So in our platform, teachers can create their own lesson plans. So they can use our lesson plans that are also free. Everything's free. But if they want to, they can upload their own lessons. And then they can say, I like my lesson and I donate it to Hedy. And then other people can also use the lessons from the teachers and they get a little counter seeing what people are using it. So from the start, I think it was really created as a system because it's open source where people could participate and help. And these translators, that's also something I didn't really count on, but the translators then become local advocates. If someone has done all the work to translate it into Farsi or Czech, then they will send all their teacher friends an email saying, hey, I made this. Now you also use it. So this community then helps spread the word. So yeah, I didn't, of course, ever think that some small thing that I made for myself could have hundreds of thousands of users every month.
Well, and what I love is that you teach middle school and use this with middle school 1 day a week, and then you're a college professor 4 days a week. And this is an interesting model because the best college professors I've ever known, without a doubt, actually make time to spend in the classroom. That's just what they do. And they stay really close to kids. So when you work with your age 12 kids and you're teaching them programming, what are some of the challenges that you find as you're trying to teach them the methods of programming?
Yeah, so what's really hard about programming is the unreasonable preciseness of the machine. And Python has that, something like C, or if people are aware of it, has all these curly brackets and semicolons. Python is already a little bit closer to natural language, but still, if you forget a bracket or you forget a comma, then a teacher can look at something and think, oh, that's almost correct, like half points for that. But a machine will just say, beep, bop, no closing brackets.
Yeah.
And I think that is really hard for kids, that they want to quickly build something really cool. And they think, oh, in programming class, in 3 weeks, we will have our own app. And they say, oh, I want to build a game. So they come in with all this enthusiasm. But then building a game actually means writing thousands of lines of a cryptic language that you have to practice like a second language, like Spanish or French for English speakers. And there's a lot of practice involved. And then this initial enthusiasm that they have for the topic, it's sometimes really hard to keep that because the work is so hard. And then 12-year-olds have limited cognitive stamina. So after 10 minutes, they're like, this is hard. This is boring. Like, yeah, yes. I don't have a better answer.
It can also be exciting. As I work with my seniors and 10th graders on AP Computer Science principles, you've got to be able to talk to people who don't do programming. There's so many things that happen when you teach programming that cannot happen any other way in any other subject without incorporating teaching some sort of programming.
Yes. Yeah, because once they get it, right, once they're over this hump, then they're like, oh, but now that I know this, I can also do this. Like at one point we teach functions. So that's, you can group a few lines of code and then you can repeat the group. So you can make, for example, a flower. That's one of our examples where you draw one petal of the flower and then you just turn a few degrees and then you do another petal, 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 petal. And then with a very small amount of code, you can create beautiful colored flowers. And then kids are like, oh, this was really hard to learn, but now that I know it, I'm like a wizard.
It's a lot like the learning pit that James Nottingham talks about. I had him on the podcast not too long ago. It's like you start and then you kind of feel like you're in a hole and you're like, oh dear, there's a whole lot I don't know. And it's like climb, 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 climb. And then when you crest that hill, the other day, the light bulb finally went on last month in my AP class. And we were talking about something and I was, just communicating like you would probably communicate with your college kids. And you say, oh, you just need to do this and make a parameter here and iterate your list. And, and I'm just throwing out all this stuff. And the kid looked at me and says, Miss Davis, I understood every single thing you said. And I'm like, yes, but so it starts with those little conversations at a young age, and then you can build, and then you can build, and then you can build until you just get to a point where you're like, okay, whether I go into to be a doctor, or I go to be an accountant, or a lawyer, or a college professor, or a teacher, or whatever, I now have a skill that I can apply to make my profession better.
Yes.
Because this is not about making everybody be a computer science person,
not
right?
at all. This is also why we have all these different scenarios. This is why we have making a picture, making interactive fiction, making a song. That also shows exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
Look, if you want to be a musician, code can help. If you want to be a fiction writer, code can help. It can make your life easier and more interesting, and it can help you create other things.
Okay, so let's let you give a pep talk. You've got teachers listening to this who are like, okay, Felinne, I don't know a lot about all this stuff, but I know the importance of teaching code. Is this approachable and usable for teachers anywhere? And if so, how do they get started?
Yes, absolutely. Because one of the things of Hedy that we didn't talk about yet, apart from it being multilingual, is that it's gradual, a step-by-step language. So in the first level where you start, level 1, you just have 5 different codes. And your kids cannot do anything else. Because you just mentioned Scratch, that people might be familiar with. This is a block-based programming language. That's really cool. It allows you to do a lot of things, but all the blocks are always available to kids. So then 30 kids that you have, they're all doing different things, and it's super hard to maintain the classroom as a teacher. In Hedy, level 1 just has a few codes. So the kids are constrained, and you as a teacher, you don't have to learn everything at once. You also learn the first few codes. And then you go to the next level, and then it's a little bit more. And then you go to the next level, and it's a little bit more. Every time we offer a new concept. And all the levels also come with built-in PowerPoint slides that you can just use. And then the concepts are explained, so you can use this if you want to. This classroom-facing teaching where you show everything step by step, and then students do a little bit of work. We have a backend also. As a teacher, you can log in and you see an overview of what your students are doing, where they are. We have built-in quizzes, so you can keep an eye on who is performing and what do they really understand. And all of that is also free. And we have a teacher community. So if you're stuck, we can pair you with another teacher that has a little bit more experience, so that you have a buddy that you can send an email to. And then people that are in the system, they volunteer as, oh, I want to be a buddy. And then you can be coupled with help. So we really try to help people get started.
That's awesome. So they just go to your website, Hedy.org.
There's a button on the website that says try it now. So you click try it now and you can immediately start programming. And then if you want to, you can create an account. You just say, I'm a teacher. And then you get access to all the teacher features like creating a classroom, inviting your students into your classroom. And one thing that's important specifically for people in the EU, we are GDPR compliant. So you can create accounts for students without an email address, without private information. You just call them student 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you can use the platform, and then it's entirely GDPR proof. This is also explained on our website. But for EU...
Felinne, thank you for coming on the show. This sounds like a really novel approach, and I'm excited about it.
Thanks for having me.
Today's sponsor, MadLearn, is an easy tool for students to use to build apps of their own in a private space for just you and your students. You can publish it and share it with a limited audience or design something bigger. When people ask me my favorite app building tool, I always say MadLearn. Not only have I used MadLearn for the first global collaborative app building project, I love having my students build together and host a Shark Tank competition. I love how my students can edit together, but also view live changes on their smartphone using a QR code demo that is still private just to them and me. Their site is full of every presentation rubric and even a full curriculum, so I can teach design thinking and app building to my students. Go to coolcatteacher.com/try MadLearn and sign up today for your free trial. That's coolcatteacher.com/try MadLearn.
You've been listening to the 10-Minute Teacher Podcast. If you want more content from Vicki Davis, you can find her on Facebook, X.com, TikTok, Threads, Instagram, Blue Sky, and YouTube at Cool Cat Teacher. Thank you for listening.